Okay, hello and welcome to the Ferguson Library's online class for intermediate Microsoft Excel. For everybody who's joining, I'm Frank Skornia. I'm the digital librarian for Adult and Information Services, I'd like to just kind of cover some quick things about kind of doing this class here on YouTube before I actually get into the class itself. So first off, you'll want to pay attention to the link that's right above my head here to fergusonlibrary.org/online-tech-classes. If you go to that site there, that will take you to this site here, which is kind of our online class resources that we're putting together right now. If you've missed any of our past classes, the links to recordings on here on YouTube are all available right here, as well as our upcoming schedule for the rest of this week and the next couple of weeks. I will add links as they become available on here too. Scrolling down the handouts, there are several tabs down here for each of the different classes. You'll want to click on the Intermediate Microsoft Excel class here, and there will be two downloads here. The first will be the handout, which is this PDF document here, which will be kind of the exercises that we're going to work through during the course of this class, as well as a reference to all of the various different keyboard shortcuts that are available in Excel, one of the things that we're going to cover in this class, as well as some information about lynda.com at the end. Let me go back where we're at. And then you want the second handout here, which is going to be the Excel file that we're going to do the practice exercises in. So that will be this Excel file right here. So before we get started, you'll want to make sure that you have those downloaded and running in your version of Microsoft Excel. If you have any questions during the course of this class, please ask them in the chat. I will see it. What you're seeing right now is a little bit delayed from what I'm presenting, but I will see your questions, and when I figure it's a good time, I'll go back and answer it on there. Since most people are going to be watching this on their computers and they have only one screen to be able to watch it, so it's not like I'm up there and you have Excel sitting in front of you, what I'm going to do through the course of this class is I will demonstrate the skills that I'll be showing to you, and then I will give you usually between 3 to 5 minutes to go off into your own version of Excel and do the exercises. If you have questions during that time, I'll be available to answer them. Those are good times to kind of ask questions, or if you miss something, I can re-demonstrate it during that time while other people are working on the exercises. With that said, I think I have covered everything. The other link that shows up on the page here is the survey link. So when it's all done, I'll actually also share this address when I'm all done on the screen here. But this will go out to kind of our assessment survey to kind of give you guys can give me a rating of kind of how I did during this year. So with that there, let's actually kind of go over what this class is going to cover during this time. So coming into this class, some of the stuff that you should already know is you should know how to create a new Excel file, how to save and open a saved Excel file, entering data into an Excel worksheet, selecting and modifying data in an Excel worksheet, though I'm going to go over selection of data for just a little bit also, and then how to create formulas. So we're not going to really kind of cover any of the basics of that of those skills here in Excel. Those were covered in our basic Excel class, which I did last week, and is available for recording here as a recording here on YouTube, so you can go back and watch that if you want. What I am going to cover today is that we're going to look at how to manage the data in Excel. So once you have data put into Excel, what are ways that you can start working with it? How can you manage it? How can you sort it? How can you filter it? Ways to kind of look at and present the data in your Excel spreadsheet. I'm going to introduce the Vlookup and HLookup functions. There's always a lot of requests about those, and so I've kind of added them into this class there. So we'll look at that kind of one formula on how to use HLookup and Vlookup, and it fits because it's another way to look at and analyze and work with the data that you've put into your Excel spreadsheet. We're going to take a look at shortcuts, keyboard shortcuts in Excel. So ways to navigate and modify the data in the worksheet. We're going to look at basic conditional formatting. So we're going to look at the conditional formatting aspects of Excel that allow you to highlight specific data and time, or specific data and data conditions. And then finally, we're going to look at templates and kind of a brief way to like what templates are and some ways that you can customize them for your own use. So if there's any questions on that there, please ask them in the chat and I'll come and answer that there. But let's dive right into what we're working on here. So If you open up the NLBB salaries 2005.xls file, which is the one that got downloaded, it's this link here in your Excel. Just kind of a word of notice here. My demonstration here, I am working with Excel 365 or Excel Desktop as it's also called. This is very similar to Excel 2016 and 2019. So if you're using one of those other versions, this is going to be very close to what you have. If you have an older version, Excel 2010, 2013, actually, I think everything that we're doing in this class here will match with what you're doing in those other versions. If something doesn't match or you're not able to find what I'm talking about or demonstrating on there in your version, let me know in the chat, and I'll go back and we'll figure, and I'll show you kind of where it'll be on there. So what I'm going to do, actually, I'm just going to kind of just zoom in a bit to kind of make this a little bit clearer. There we go. Just make it a little bigger for you guys. I can see it fine, but we want to make sure that it's all readable for everybody watching. So yeah, a little bit bigger. That, yeah. Okay. So what am I looking at? Okay, so we're going to be looking at using shortcuts in Excel. And so shortcuts are a great way to kind of, when you become really familiar with Excel, to kind of do a lot of your common tasks without having to pick up your hands from your keyboard and use your mouse. So as you're working and you're typing along, entering in data onto your keyboard, there's things that you need to do that you stop, you pick up your hand, you move it over to the mouse, and then you have to kind of pinpoint click on the kind of the button that you want to do on the ribbon. So it's like me moving up and trying to find up here. I have to click to data and then click to sort. It can kind of break the momentum of what you're working on. Sort was not an example for that there, but for example, changing the font or making something bold or italicized, or just kind of other things. Sometimes it's just easier to do that on the keyboard and using a keyboard shortcut. So most keyboard shortcuts are used as a combination of keys. Usually it's a combination of 2 or 3 keys, the most common being the control key. So if you look down at your keyboard, and you'll see actually in the bottom left corner of your keyboard, there's this key that says CTRL or control. And usually what you'll do is you'll hold that down, and then you'll hit another key to indicate the shortcut or the action that you want to do. And so some common things that you can do with keyboard shortcuts are things like formatting, making things bold or italicized. Making things bold is Control B. Hold down Control. So like if I want to make this name here, Greg Aquino, bold, I'll hold down Control and I'll hit B. It's kind of, you can't see what my hands are doing, but you can kind of practice it yourself there. And so you hold down Control and then you hit the key. And you can see up here on the ribbon, the little B section kind of lit up, making that, saying that's bold. If I go down here and do Control I, it makes that italicized. So those are common keyboard shortcuts. Those also work in Microsoft Word. Using Control B, Control I makes things. I'm just taking this back to what it was before. Making things kind of easier to use. A lot of these keyboard shortcuts do work across a range of Microsoft Office products, as well as actually across a lot of Windows. So common keyboard shortcuts, copy and paste. Copy is Control C, paste is Control V. So if you look down on your keyboard, they're like right next to each other, the C and the V. The third partner in that that relationship, the cut is Control X. And so you can see those three are kind of all together. Control X, Control C, Control V. So they kind of, Control C, copy, is kind of easy to remember, but then V and X are kind of tied in together with that there, so they place them together on the keyboard. Those will work in your web browser in Firefox or Chrome. Those will work in Windows if you want to copy and paste files, or copy and paste file names. Control C, Control V works kind of universally across the Windows ecosystem. Let's see. Or what else? Keyboard shortcuts. If you look, actually, instead of kind of going over all the different keyboard shortcuts, there's a lot of them there, and they're kind of hard to demonstrate since you can't see my hands. If you look at the handout that you downloaded here, after page 2, this is actually a pretty large handout. Pages 3 through 10 are a wide variety of keyboard shortcuts that are used for Microsoft Excel. My recommendation is, if you're familiar working with Excel, kind of go through this list here and kind of find kind of activities that you tend to do a lot, and practice learning the keyboard shortcut for that there. After a while, you'll actually start learning muscle memory that it will become automatic to hit those keyboard shortcuts. So a good one to kind of remember and always practice is Control S for save. Again, that's something that works almost everywhere universally in Windows. Control S will save. Something like Control P for print. It just sometimes it's just easier instead of going and trying to find where is the print function, where is the file menu, because file menus have started to disappear a lot in programs in Windows today. So sometimes it can be a little bit difficult to find where the print is, or like here, trying to find this little print button here in Adobe Reader. Sometimes it may not be as clear, but Control P always works, and it's always in the same place on your keyboard. Another kind of common keyboard shortcut that I like to use a lot in Excel is the add line function or add row. And so usually what I'll do is if I wanted to like add rows into like the middle of the table that I have here, what I'll do is I'll select one row, and then the keyboard shortcut for add a row is Control plus. So if you look down at your keyboard, you'll see the Control down in the bottom left, and then up in the top right, usually next to the backspace key, is the plus equals key. Now, if I just hit Control and hit that key, all it is like a Control equals, which I think has its own skill. So in order to get the plus, I have to hit Shift. Just like if you were going to type a plus symbol in your in Microsoft Excel, you would need to hit Shift and then that key. So in order to do a new line, it's Control Shift plus equals. And what I like to do is, like, suppose I wanted to add in some lines in between Greg Aquino here and Brian Bruni. I can easily go in. I hit Control Shift, and then I just start hitting. I can just start hitting plus, and each time I hit it, adds a new line in. And usually, what I'll do is if I don't know how many spaces I need, I'll go in and just add in a whole bunch. I'll add 8, 9, 10 rows into the middle of my table there, because once I've filled in what I need to do, it's really easy for me to select and then delete the rows that I didn't use and kind of close up the gap. So Control Plus ends up being a very, very useful for insert row skill to have in Excel. Because if I wanted to do it using my mouse, I actually have to go over here, right-click, go down to Insert, and it will insert the row. But that's, again, that's a little bit, it's click, move, click, whereas Control-Shift Plus, I can just keep hitting that as many times as I want to hit. So it's a much faster, much more convenient skill to use. Just get rid of these rows so that we don't have them anymore. Delete. So let's look at a couple other keyboard shortcuts and some of the skills to kind of work with it. And then I'll give you some time to go off and practice on your own. So the first exercise that we're going to look at is that we're going to look at selecting all of the characters in the Cincinnati Reds, and we're going to make them all bold. What I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll down, and these are all alphabetical by team name over here on the left. This spreadsheet just happens to be an example one that I found online. It's just a listing of players and salaries and their positions from the National League in 2005. So there's nothing really specific about this data here. It's really old. I should probably find something newer, but it works for the course of this class. So here we go. I have found the Cincinnati Reds. Now, selecting things in Excel, there's a couple different ways that you can kind of do things. The way that most people do it is the click and drag, that you can click on your first cell to select it, and then you can kind of drag left and right, or up and down, or diagonally to select a range of cells. One of the things in Excel is that works well if you're only grabbing like a few rows or a few columns at a time. But when you start actually having to go down and actually having to scroll down, you can see it can start scrolling really quickly, and it can be hard to kind of focus it to where it needs to go. This time I was able to do it pretty well, but other times it'll just scroll past really quickly, and then you have to kind of go back and find where things are. There is a more way to more precisely select ranges in Excel. And what you can do is if you click on, let's click on the top left corner of the data that I want. So I want this top, I want A84, which is my first line for the Cincinnati Reds and the first column of it. Now I'm going to go down until I find the last row right down here, and I'm going to find the last column, so this one down here. And I'm going to hold down the Shift key on my keyboard, and then I'm just going to, while I have it held down, I'm going to click on this last one. And what Shift will do, Shift will select all of the cells from where you started to where you end, inclusive. So it'll select that one as well as the end one. It'll select everything in between. So it's a really great way to select a range of cells in Microsoft Excel. Now, if I selected, say, just the last one here, and I hold down the Control key instead, so the Control key on my keyboard, remember that Control that's down in the bottom left? I can then select cells that are separated from each other. It will not select the ones that are in between, just the very specific cells that I'm clicking on. So Control allows you to select specific places to work with, whereas Shift will select everything in between. So what we're going to do here is we're going to select the Cincinnati Red. So we're going to go up here to A84. I'm going to click on that. I'm going to come down to, it looks like it's D113, which is the last one here. I'm going to hold down the Shift key, and I'm going to click on Picture there. And again, it will select everything in between. And then I'm going to hold down Control and hit B. What that does is that with everything selected, it made everything bold. I could have gone up and clicked on this here, but I just wanted to show you what the keyboard shortcut is. So I'm going to actually have you do that. Go and make all the Cincinnati Reds bold, and then go and make the New York Mets, make them italicized. Use Control-I to make them italicized. And if you have any questions, please ask in the chat. I'll give you about 2 minutes to do this. Okay, so has everybody gone and made all of the Cincinnati Reds bold and all of the New York Mets italicized? I just wanted to just mention one more thing actually about this here. You may notice during the course of the stream that I'm going to be kind of looking up to the top left or top right for me and the top left. The main reason for that there is I actually have a couple different screens up there that are showing me different things. So up over here, I'm actually looking at the chat, and if you have any questions on there, as well as the course, the information about the stream and making sure everything's fine. And my clock is up there as well too, so I just have a kind of sense of the time as things are going. Over here, I have my streaming software, and I just making sure again that everything is kind of working properly on there. So that's why if you see me kind of looking up and to the left or right, I'm just kind of checking on those kind of things. So now we've looked at like Control B, Control I. We've practiced doing some selection, working with kind of formatting our cells here in Microsoft Excel. Another common keyboard shortcut to use that allows you to work with the data, because here you can see we have a lot of data entered in here. I think we have somewhere around 400, yeah, we have 442 rows of data in there. So there's a lot of data. Sometimes you may want to be able to find something specific in your data. So you can do the find. You look up here on your ribbon in the very top right, under the editing section here, there's a find and select. But you can also get to the find by hitting Control F. Control F is easy to remember. Control F for find. So if I hit Control F, what it'll do is open up this find and replace box here. This will allow me to do a search for information in my Excel spreadsheet. So on our exercises, under exercise 1, like one of the part there and such, it has us looking for an author or a player named Josh Fogg. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to put in Josh Fogg. And I'm going to do a search, find next, and you'll notice that I did not find anything. And so the reason for that there is the find function in Excel can be a little precise. Sometimes it needs to be kind of like precise on there. And if you notice, the names that I have entered in here for the player's name are all listed as last name first, comma, and then first name. So in order to find Josh Fogg, I have to put it in as Fogg / Josh in order to be able to find it. Oh, find it then. Joshua. Oh, you know why? So the reason why this isn't working right now, these are the fun things about doing this thing live, is that I still have this section here selected. I have the New York Mets down here selected, so it's only looking in my selected box here on Excel. So in order to do the search properly, I actually have to click outside of to unselect what I had selected. So let me go back and try that again. So here's Josh Fogg again, the first way, which should not work because it's not listed, the name is not listed in the right order. So then if I go here to Fogg Josh, find next, and there he is down with the Pittsburgh Pirates. So when you're doing a search and you're not finding what you're expecting to find, take a look at the formatting of how you're searching and the formatting of the data that you're looking for. Another good example of this here. So we're going to close, find and replace, and I'm actually going to go to, I'm going to hit Control H, which is right next to the FG. It's right next to there. H opens up the replace side. Now, I kind of added a little bit extra abilities because you can see I can actually click the little tabs back and forth here, change between find or replace. But I just wanted to show you that Control H is the keyboard shortcut for replace. And so what replace allows you to do in Excel spreadsheet is replace allows you to change the find a value of a cell. So you find something specific, and then you can have it changed automatically to something else. This is really useful if you need to do like batch changes. Like if you have something in there that you know that it shows up, like suppose you're filling in a spreadsheet and you don't have all your information yet, so you need to fill in like data comes later or something. You can do a search for data comes later and then fill it all in with the same information. So in this case, what I'm going to do is we're going to look at the salaries there. The National League had a good year, and they decided that everybody who was making $360,000 a year was going to get a $5,000 upgrade or a promotion or a raise. What we're going to do is we're going to search for everybody who made $360,000. Now, here's another little quirk of doing searches or replacing here in Excel. If you notice that all of my numbers here, we have 13, 166. So with they use the commas to separate the millions, the thousands, and the ones in the number there. So I'm going to do a search for 360,000, and we're going to come down here. We're going to replace it with 365,000. Now, I could go through, if I'm really confident that my search is going to find what I want it to do and going to replace it. If I'm really confident with that there, which I'm never confident about that there, I can go and click replace all, and it will go through and automatically replace everything without me seeing what that change will be. As I mentioned, I'm never confident about these searches. I've been doing this stuff for a couple decades now, and I'm still not confident in all of this stuff. So usually what I like to do when I'm doing a replace is I like to hit this find all button. What this will do is, what it will normally do is that it will show you all of the instances, all of the places where your search term shows up. Now, you notice this time it did not find what I'm looking for. And the reason for that there is that I have this comma in there. So even though this here matches with the formatting that's on there, if I go and look at this number here, and you look up in my formula bar, how it says 750000, there's no comma in there. Excel does not see the comma there. It's only showing the comma over here for you, the user, to make it easier for you to read that number. Because it's easier for you to see this as 750,000 than if we remove that comma and then we have to like mentally count zeros to figure out what size that number is. So in that case, when I do this find here, I actually have to remove that comma in order for it to find it specifically, because Excel does not see that comma. Now, you'll see later on when we're working with conditional formatting, there's another place in Excel where you need to use that comma. It's really confusing, and it's something you just kind of have to remember and understand as you're working with things. But in this case, we don't want the comma there. So I'm going to hit Find All again. And you'll notice now is that it will give me a list, and it's giving me a list of, it looks like 6 different entries where it's found. I'm going to say found in quotes, the value that I'm looking for. So if you remember, the value that I'm looking for is 360,000. So you can see 5 of these here is the 360,000, but there's one here that is not. It's 3.6 million. And the reason for that there is that even though to us, to our eyes, we know this is a different number. To Excel, What it was looking for is it was looking for 3 6 and then 4 zeros. Now, if you look at this number here, we have 3 6, 1 2 3 4, 4 zeros. There just happens to be another zero added onto that there. And to Excel, that's like, okay, whatever. It's still close enough to the number that you're looking for, so it must be close to the value that you're looking for. Not in this case, because if we go and actually had replaced this here and such, this guy here would have ended up with a $500,000 raise, where all the other people just got 5,000. And the National League doesn't want to be making that kind of mistake. So there are, if you look up here under the Find and Replace, there's this little Options button. What this Options button does, if I click on this here, it opens up some kind of ways that I can kind of adjust or work with my search to kind of make it more precise. There's a bunch of different things. Where it's going to search, so it's going to search just in the sheet, which is the worksheet that we're working on, or is it going to look in the whole workbook? So if you have like multiple worksheets down here, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever they're called there and such, you can search all of them by changing this to workbook. Do you want to search in rows? Usually, I don't really know what this here usually changes very much, except for the order that it gives you the responses. Do you want to look in formulas? Actually, that's the only option there is formulas. But the important things to look at are these two checkboxes right here. So the first one says match case. And what that means is that it will look for, it will make sure that the results that it finds matches the capitalization of your search. So if we go back to my Josh Fogg search, if I had just typed in Fogg with a lowercase F-O-G-G, it still would have found it because I don't have this selected. I don't have it matching case. Here, actually, let me demonstrate. Let me show you that there. So if I go in and type in Fogg right now, we're going to find next. There he is there. What now I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll away so we're not seeing it on the screen. And I'm going to click this Match Case button. And now if I click Find there and such, you can notice that it's not finding it because Fogg, as it's entered in here, has a capital F. And my search does not have a capital F. If I go in and do capital F now and do Find, it will find it then. So that's what match case does, is it matches the capitalization between there, which is useful if you're looking, say, for a name or a proper noun that is also like another noun. This whole match case thing also works in Word if you're doing a search in Word in that case. The other one that we're looking at, I'm going to go back to replace. The other thing that we're going to look at here is this match entire cell contents. So when this is on, and I do my search for 360,000, it means that the entire cell, nothing extra, must match the search. So I'm going to do Find Next again. That works. Find all. Oh, there we go. Never mind. Sorry, I had to do Find All. So now you notice that after I did Find All, when I turned on Match Cell Contents, it's no longer seeing that 3.6 million. And the reason for that there now is that 3.6 million, that extra zero there, meant that the entire cell, the value in the whole cell, does not match my search value. So now that I'm satisfied with my search value, or my search results here, okay, these are all the way that I want them to do, I can come up here and then click Replace All. And then what it will do now is it will then replace every entry of 360,000 with 365,000. If I do this Find All now, it won't find anything because there's no longer a 360,000 to find. So I'm going to give just a little bit of, actually, you guys can kind of play around with this here on your own. I just want to kind of demonstrate how that Find and Replace kind of works and kind of the way to keyboard. Remember, Control F to get to Find, Control H to get to Replace. The next skill that we're going to look at quickly here, the last for the keyboard shortcuts, is we're just going to look a quick look at copy and paste. I know people are probably comfortable using copy and paste, but Excel handles copy and paste a little differently than the rest of Windows. So what we're going to do first is that we're going to select all of the players on the San Francisco Giants, and we're going to copy them. I'm going to go down to the, let's go, San Francisco Giants. So here they are. And once again, I'm going to do my Shift Select. So I'm going to go to the top left, come down to the bottom right, Shift, Select, and select them all. And now I could come up here and just do copy. What I'm going to do is I'm going to actually hold down my Control key and hit C. And you can see now I have the dotted line going around my selection that indicates to me that this is now copied and sitting on Excel's clipboard. Now, as I mentioned, Excel handles copy and paste a little bit differently than other software. Usually what happens is when you copy and paste anything in Windows, it goes to the Windows clipboard, which means that you can easily take it out and copy and paste it in any other software. And it's there, it's sitting on that clipboard until you copy something else. That's generally that's somewhat true with what we have here with Excel, but once I have this selected and copied, so I have this dotted line going on, if I'm doing anything else with this data, I have to immediately go and paste it and work on it here now. If I go and decide, oh wait, I'm supposed to put something in, I'm supposed to be something, or I'm looking at this here and okay, this is not actually a pitcher, this is actually a catcher here, and I go in and type it in, you'll notice now I no longer have the selection or the dotted line around it, so it's no longer selected and in the key, in the clipboard. So I have to. So if you make any changes after you select and copy something in Excel, you have to go back and copy it again. And so that's the one thing to keep in mind when you're working with copy and pasting in Excel. So I'm going to do is I'm going to come here, I'm going to select and copy again, and I'm just going to go over here to Sheet 2, and I'm going to hit Control, hold on Control, and hit V to paste. And you can see just with a couple keyboard shortcuts, it was able to easily drop the whole thing in there. Such it doesn't match up formatting, it doesn't match up the widths. You actually have to do specific pasting for that to happen, which we're not going to really kind of cover in this class. You can kind of practice with the variety of different pasting that you can do in Excel. There's a variety of different things you can do. But I just wanted to show you that Control-C and Control-V will be the copy and paste shortcuts. And those are just good ones to kind of practice and kind of get into your muscle memory, because they also work pretty well across all of Windows, whether you're Microsoft Word, Microsoft PowerPoint, your browser, or any other kind of software that you're using. So I'll actually give you a little bit of practice. Let's do another 2 minutes. Go to your Excel, select the San Francisco Giants, and then hit Control-C. Go down to a new tab down on the bottom and click anywhere in that spreadsheet and hit Control-V just to see how the Control-C and Control-V pace. I'll give you 2 minutes for that there, and then we're going to move on to looking at sorting and filtering. If you have any questions, please drop them in the chat. Okay, so I hope you've had a little bit of practice doing copy and paste using keyboard shortcuts. And maybe if you spend some time kind of practicing the find and replace as well too. So now we're going to start looking at other ways that we can kind of start working with the data that we have in our spreadsheet. So I'm going to scroll back up to the top of my document, and first thing that we're going to look at is that we're going to look at sorting. So the Excel offers two different kind of tools that you can start work. Two main tools you can use to start working with and organizing your data in Excel, especially if you have a lot of data. The first one is sorting. And what sorting does is allows you to put it into a specific order the way that you want. Now, if we look at the data that we have here, our data is already sorted in a specific way. This is actually sorted first by team name. So all the team names are here in alphabetical order. So we start with Arizona, we go down to Atlanta, go down to Chicago, Cincinnati. So those are all kind of in alphabetical order. And then within that team, so within all of the Arizona Diamondbacks here, it's ordered by the name of the player here. So there's already a sorting kind of system put in here. But suppose you were creating your spreadsheet and you've just put in all your data. You didn't really have a specific order that you're entering your data. So now it's all entered in and you want to be able to look at it in a specific way. So we wanted to say, take a look at this data here. And we wanted to look at it by their salary, see who's earning the most, all the way down to the least. We can kind of sort it that way as well too. So let's do that there. So there are a couple different ways to get to sort in Excel. There is in your home row. So we're in the home tab here on the ribbon, right over here on the far right in this editing section, next to that find and select that I showed before, there is a sort and filter menu. This will allow us to get to sort and then filter down there. Now, this is fine to use. This is available to use all the time there and such. I tend to, just because of my muscle memory and how I've learned using Excel, I tend to actually use it here in the data tab. So if I go up here on the top of my ribbon here and come over to data right here in the middle, there is right in the middle of the ribbon there is a sort and filter section there with sort on the left and then filter over on the right. And so first of all, it gives us a couple quick sorts where we can select a column and have it automatically kind of sort that column there. There's also this sort button. This is what I wanted to show you here. So we're going to click on sort, this up over here, and we get the sort box. And now the easiest way to think of sorting is to think of it as a sentence that you're actually writing. I'll read through the sentences working there. The first thing you want to make sure, though, is you want to make sure that you look up here in this top right of this box here, there's this checkbox that says my data has headers. And what that's saying is that the top row of the data that's selected, and you'll notice that as soon as I hit sort, it automatically selected the table here with all the data there. But it's saying that the top row has labels for what each column is. And this is generally a good practice when you're working in Excel and you're making an Excel spreadsheet, is to enter in these labels and then make sure that when you have the opportunity to note that you have headers on there. Because what it will do actually is that it will actually label the columns over here with the label that you put up in the header, which is a lot easier to remember or try to figure out which column you're using than to try to figure out what's column A, column B, column X on there. You can easily find it by the name. So if you see, if I turn off this checkbox, my selection now includes this top row with my labels, which means that they're also going to get sorted with the rest of my data, which I don't want to have. I don't want to have salary get entered or like name get mixed in with all the other names there. You'll also notice that my sort by here now just says column A, column B, which doesn't give me any information. It's not helpful at all. So save yourself time and just kind of make things clearer for you. Use header rows. So you always kind of make your first row kind of a description of kind of what goes on in that column. And then when you have the option of saying my data has headers, always kind of turn that on. It just makes things a lot easier for yourself. Now we're going to be looking at, we want to sort our data in this case by the salary. We want the highest salary up at the top all the way down to the lowest salary. And then we're going to sort it by the name. So everybody who has the same salary will be alphabetized. So again, as I mentioned, you can actually read this as going by a sentence. You can see it starts here by sort by, and then we choose what it's sorted by. So we're going to go down and we're going to sort by position, or not position, salary. And then you have the option sort by salary. In this case, cell values. Now the sort on has several different kind of options there. We have cell values, which is the data that's inside the cell. We have cell color, which is the color of the cell or the font color. And you'll see when we get to conditional formatting that we can actually change the color. Or if you go through it and you want to mark data in a specific way, you can highlight data. You can go down and select cells and then using the, let's cancel this. And then using the highlight or font colors over here, you can make those cells stand out so that when you sort, you can pull out those specific cells if you want. Let me go back to my sort. Okay, so we're going to sort by salary. And then over here you have the order. And this here will change. If you notice, when I was originally on team, it says A to Z. When I come here to salary, it says smallest to largest. And the reason for that there is it recognizes the difference between the cell being a text cell or being a number cell. In this case, salary is a number cell, so it gives me smallest to largest. If I click on here, you can see I can go either smallest to largest or largest to smallest. In this case, I want to go largest to smallest because I want to have the largest salary on the top and the smallest on the bottom. There's also this third option here for custom list. And I'm going to click in this here just to demonstrate, kind of show you what it's for. So custom list allows you to actually design a custom sorting order. And they give some, actually, they already have some kind of built in for things like days of the week and months of the year, because days of the week and months of the year generally have they already have an order. We already know the order. We know that Sunday comes before Monday, comes before Tuesday. But if they were sorted alphabetically, you would have Monday, Sunday, Tuesday, which doesn't make a lot of sense. Same thing with the months. January comes before February, comes before March, comes before April. But if those were sorted alphabetically, it would be April, February, January, March, which confuses everybody. So what you can do is you can actually put in a custom sorting order so that you always say, okay, January always comes before February, always before March, and then it will sort it that direction. Since we're not looking at dates or days of the week, we're not going to worry about that custom list. So here we're going to sort by salary, the values of the salary by largest to smallest. So here's my sentence: sort by salary, salary cell values, largest to smallest. I hit OK. Here's my highest salary, and I go all the way down, and you can see it just kind of decreases the salaries as we work our way down. You can build complicated sorting. So as I mentioned before, remember when we were looking at the original sort data in Excel, it was sorted by the team name. So all the team names were alphabetized. I'm a librarian, I should be able to say the word alphabetized. And then by player name. And so you can do that same thing in here. And that's what this little add level up here does. So if I click add level in my sort, I get this second line that says then by. And so this continues that sentence metaphor that we've been using here. So sort by salary, cell values, largest to smallest, then sort by, we're going to do name, A to Z. Hit OK. And it didn't change much. There was some places that changed. Let's see if we can find some. Okay, so like for example, like we have a couple here that have 12.5 million. We have Ken Griffey Jr. coming before Preston Silson. We come down, there's a bunch of people here at 9 million. You can see now they're all in alphabetical order by their last name. So that's how you kind of build sorts. Now, when you sort data in Excel, there's no like cancel or way to go back to the original sorting unless you use the undo function. So the undo function in Excel will take you back steps of actions that you did. The keyboard shortcut for undo is Control Z. That's another really good one to learn. So if I hit Control Z, it will unsort my data back to the way it was before. Now, if I saved and closed my spreadsheet after I sorted and then I reopened it again, I can't undo the sorting then. But then I can always just like resort it in another order. So it basically, once you sort it, pretty much assume that you can't go back to the original order unless that original order was already sorted in some fashion, and you can kind of repeat that sorting. Let's quickly build this here. Salary, smallest. Everything's back into the order there. So are there any questions about sorting? I'm going to actually, let's take another couple of minutes, go into your Excel and sort your data. So what you do is you'll just click anywhere in your data, it doesn't matter where. Go to the data tab up here, click sort, and then you want to sort by salary, largest to smallest, then by name, A to Z. So I'll give you about 2 minutes, and then if you have any questions, let me know. All right, so we've had some practice sorting your spreadsheets using the sort function. So now we're going to look at the other way that we can, one of the other ways that we can manage the data that we have in our Excel spreadsheet. Now, as I mentioned, as I showed you, our spreadsheet has somewhere about 437 or so rows of data. That's a lot of data. It's kind of overwhelming to look at it all and try to get a sense of patterns or anything. I mean, sorting is one way of getting patterns. We can look here and we can kind of do like sort by the salary and kind of maybe see like which teams are up here at the top. You can kind of get a sense of what patterns there are. But there are other ways to kind of reduce the amount of data that you're looking at a time. And the easiest way to do that is by filtering. So filters actually allow you to filter out certain parts of the data and only look at the data that you want to see. So we start with filtering by, you want to actually click on the top header row of whatever column, or it doesn't actually, it could be any column on there. And still here in the data tab, right here in the sort and filter section, we're going to go to this button here that says filter. I'm going to just click filter. And you'll notice that when I did that there, it turned on these little triangular menus onto each of these cells. And so what this is this indicates that I can now use a filter on that column. So what we're going to do here is that we're going to look at, let me take a look at my extra here. Okay, so we're going to filter the list by position. So one of the ways that we can kind of look at it is if we wanted to say compare the salaries of say all the catchers, I can come up here to position and I can click on this here and you can see my filter box. And so in the filter, this is yet another way that we can do sorting. So if I wanted to sort by the position, I can do some sorting there. You can see there's an option to sort by color. That'll become useful when we do things like conditional formatting, or if you've used color to help kind of color code your data. But the thing in here to pay attention to is right down here at the bottom of the box. And what this here is, this will list all of the individual unique entries that are in that column. Now, in a column like pitcher, there should only, or a position, there should only be 9 entries because there's only 9 positions on a baseball team. Now, if I go over here and look at name, because every single name is unique, they're all listed here. So the filter works well on some columns, like where you have limited set of entries in a column. I could do it by salary too, and again, granted, there's a lot here with salaries, but there's fewer than there are. So I can look at specific salaries and see who has them if I want. But here in position, there's only 9 positions, and I want to look at all the ones who are just catchers. First thing I'll do is this top box says select all, and you can see it's checked, which means that every single one here is selected. Anything that has a checkbox here is going to be shown on my Excel spreadsheet. So I'm going to turn off select all, so none of these are selected. So if you can see I can't hit OK right now because it's not going to show me anything. And then I'm going to turn on catcher. So I only want to see the positions that say catcher on them. I'm going to hit OK. And now you can see now it just shows all the players who are catchers. They're still sorted by salary, actually. So now I can see all my catchers in order by their salary. You'll notice up here that the little filter icon has changed from this triangle here to this filter with the menu on there. What this is telling me is that it tells me that there is a filter turned on this column. You'll also notice over here on the left edge, there is a the numbers here are in blue. They might be in a little bit different color on your version of Excel. Depends on, I think they are blue generally. Mine on the later version, you can see also puts these little double lines there. And what that's telling me also is that there are hidden rows. There's data that's not being shown. You can see up here, 1, 2, 3, the serial order, they're black. So what happens is there's nothing hidden in between these rows, but there is something here. You can see it goes from 7 all the way to 49 right in there. So so it's telling me is that there's hidden rows. So if you ever receive like a spreadsheet from someone and you're looking at it and it seems like there's information missing, there seems to be some gaps, or it doesn't seem to make sense, the couple of clues to look for is look over there on that left side there and see whether or not the numbers are blue. And if they are, that means that there's hidden data, and check to see if filters are turned on. And if there are, you can then turn off that filter and then see all the data. So you can see we're showing all of the catchers here now. You can filter more than one thing at a time. So if I come over here to pitcher again and open this up, if I wanted to see all the pitchers and the second baseman, I can click that. And now I can see all my catchers and second baseman going there. The order is still by that sort that I have in the salary there. You can see this catcher here earns so much more than actually the number 2 catcher in the league. He must have been really good. So that's filtering. I'm going to give you another couple of minutes. Go in, turn on filters. What you'll do is you'll click on the first column or first row of the column where your header is, and hit filter. And what it'll do is it'll turn on these filtering menus. And then you'll click on the filtering menu, and I want you to actually you could do what I did here. Look at the catchers, second baseman, or you can look at any other positions. You can also come over here and turn on teams. And so if I do say something like Colorado Rockies, I am now looking at the catchers and second baseman of just the Colorado Rockies in that case there. So you can see you can build on the filters on top of each other there. In order to clear the filter, I open up the filter, and there's this button right up here above the box that says clear filter from team. I click that there, and it turns off that filter. So take 2 to 3 minutes, we'll say 3 minutes of this time, and go practice that in Excel on your own. If you have questions, please ask me here in the chat. Thank you. Another minute on, and we're going to be looking at Vlookup and HLOOKUP. Okay, so I hope you've been able to practice with filterings. It's a really great way. You have a pretty small spreadsheet. It doesn't seem to be very useful, but if you build larger and larger spreadsheets in Excel, it just gets to be a great way to look at and kind of analyze the data that you're looking at. So I'm going to actually go in. I'm going to clear the filter so we have all of my data kind of being shown there. We're going to take a slight detour of kind of working with our data and take a quick look at a couple useful formulas. In this case, what we're going to be looking at is we're going to be looking at the HLOOKUP and VLOOKUP. And so what they do is they allow you to input some information. So what you do is you almost have like a search cell that you can enter information in, and then it will find appropriate information to fill in from that there. So for example, I could do a search for a name and then have it tell me what the salary and the position is for that person without having to go through and search it here. Where something like this is useful, this is useful for like if you have an invoice built in, you have an invoice built into Excel, you can type in something like an item number, and it will automatically fill in things like the item name and like the price into your invoice if it properly references the other spreadsheet that you're working on. So there isn't a lot of difference between VLOOKUP or HLOOKUP. The main difference is that you'll use VLOOKUP when your data is organized vertically in rows, like ours is. So ours starts up at the top, and we look down, up and down, to look at all the different entries into our data. So in this case, because it's vertically organized, we're going to use a VLOOKUP. Now you use HLOOKUP if it's organized left to right. So if you have like if I had it go team, name, salary, position, and had all the information going across to the right of that there, I'll use HLOOKUP so that it does the search left and right. So just remember, VLOOKUP is your vertical lookup that you're looking up and down. So that's how our data is here. HLOOKUP is horizontal. You're looking up left and right. Other than that, the formulas, setup for the formulas is almost exactly the same. So I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to do a quick little table here where I'm going to just do name, salary, and position. And so the way I have this set up here now is that in the name is where I'm going to type in my search what I'm looking for, the name that I'm searching for. And then I'll have it automatically fill in the salary and position boxes under here based on what's in the name there. So VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP start with, as with any other formula, they start with the equal sign to tell Excel that, hey, we're writing a formula. And then you go in and you put in the name of the formula. Now you can see I started typing VLOOK, and it gave me the recommendation here. So I'm going to double click on this, and I'm going to get VLOOKUP. And now it's going to give me the arguments, what's called the arguments or the parameters of the formula. So the first thing that it's looking for is the lookup value. So the lookup value is the searched for value. What value is it searching for? So the easiest way to do this is you click on the cell where you're going to be putting that search term. So in this case, I'm going to be typing in my search under the name thing here. So I wanted to look at G6. So we have G6, that's my first one there. And then I'm going to do comma to go to my next cell here. The next thing is the table array. What is the area that it's supposed to search for in the VLOOKUP? So where is all that data being contained? Now, when you're doing a VLOOKUP, since we're doing a VLOOKUP, I'll talk specifically about that here going forward. When you're doing a VLOOKUP, the column that has your search data, so in this case, name here, must be the leftmost column for the data table, which means that my data table cannot include A because I'm searching for a name right now. If I included the A column, when I do a search here, this VLOOKUP it's going to try to look in here, and it's not going to find anything there because that's not a name. So when I do this, it's the reason why I don't have team here is because name is written right here in the middle. I can't actually do a VLOOKUP for team based on the way my data is organized. So it's something to keep in mind that if you're going to be building a spreadsheet that you're going to want to do a VLOOKUP or HLOOKUP against, you have to make sure that either your leftmost column or your topmost row has the data that you're searching for, and everything to the right or below is where you're going to be pulling from. This table here is not set up for me to be able to pull team using a VLOOKUP using name. I'd have to actually swap these two columns to make it happen. So just something to keep in mind. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the table that's going to be done. And this is done same way. If I click up here, my top left column up here, I'm going to scroll all the way down to the bottom because I want to do all of this data here. All the way down to my last one here over in the D. I'm going to hold down Shift, and I'm going to select that there. So it selects everything. You can kind of see I get this little dotted line and this kind of pink shading that happens on my selection there. I'm going to scroll back up to the top, and you can now see actually now it's filled in my my entry here from B4, so there's B4, all the way down to D442. So this is my table array. This is everything that it's going to search in. So then I'm going to do comma to go to my next argument. So now I've told I'm going to search for whatever's in G6 inside this table of data. And the next thing here is column index number. What column has the information that I want to be looking up? So the number of columns to the right from the search info. So in this case, my column 1 is here with the name. So column 2 is the salary. So in this case, the column number that I wanted to look up the information is column 2. When I repeat this here for position, it's going to be column 3. So what I'm going to do is 2 to tell it, look at the second column of the data, second column there to the right of my start. And then finally, there is the range lookup. And there's two options here. There's either true or false. True means to find the closest match. False means an exact match. I don't really always know the difference between these two. The rule of thumb that I've come across when I've been researching this function is to pretty much always use false, unless you specifically know why you need to use true. Typically just put false here. So that's all we're going to do. We're going to put in false. I'll put it in capitals because that's what it likes. And then I'm going to close the parentheses and I'm going to hit enter. And right now I get this kind of not available because it has nothing to search for. It doesn't know what it's looking for. So what we're going to do is take a quick look here. And what we're going to do is we're going to look up a name just so I can show you how it works there. So the first name we're going to look at is we're going to look at Brad Lidge. Oop, up there. Oop. Okay. Here, in my search box, Lidge Brad. And then I hit enter. And you can see now that it's automatically filled in the salary over there. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a search for Lidge. Find next. And you can see right over there, there he is, and there is the 500,000. So you can see it automatically pulled that data and automatically filled it in here. Now what I'm going to do is over here in my position, I'm going to do that same Vlookup, but instead of looking at column 2, I'm going to look at column 3. I'm going to see if I have on the handout here. I don't. Okay, but you can still follow the Vlookup. So what I'm going to do, the easiest way to do this, instead of writing out the whole column or the whole formula again, is I'm going to click on this, and right up here in my formula box, I'm just going to highlight this, and I'm going to copy it, Control-C, using the Control-C. I'm going to escape. I'm going to hit escape so it's not selected anymore, because if I started clicking around, it will start trying to pull those cells, just the way that Excel works. One of those quirks that you learned over time, that if you have something selected, you have to Excel to escape to unselect it. Come over here to position, and I'm going to paste my formula in there. So here's that same formula entered in there, and I'm going to go in and I'm going to change this 2 here to a 3 because I want to look at the third column instead of the second column. And I'm going to hit enter. Now you can see now we have Brad Lidge, 500,000 pitcher. So let's actually go find him again and see if that date is correct. Brad Lidge, 500,000 pitcher. I can do another name, and we'll see how that data changes. We're going to do Eric Valent. So, Valent, Eric, oops, enter. So there we go, 332,000 and an outfielder. Now I've been able to, if I wanted to, if I knew all the names of the different players, I can easily use this here to kind of pull quickly what their salary is and what their position is. I'm going to give actually a little bit more time so people can kind of practice entering in this formula and if there's questions. So we're going to do 5 minutes. Go back to your practice spreadsheet here and do a Vlookup that's going to look up the salary and the position. If you have questions, please ask in the chat. And if you want, if a couple of people ask, I'll walk through the steps of filling out the Vlookup formula. The easiest thing to kind of look up again is when you type in equals and type in Vlookup, double click on it, and then it will tell you what the different things that you're starting to look for in there. But if you have questions, ask me in the chat. So go on, 5 minutes. couple more minutes. Let me know if you have any questions. All right, so has everybody had practice doing the Vlookup function on their spreadsheet? Doesn't seem like there was any questions. So we are going to continue on to looking at conditional formatting in our spreadsheet. So conditional formatting is a really great way to format cells. The format, the font, the color, the highlight, the background color of a cell, based on the data that's entered in the cell. And it's dynamic. So if you change that information, it will change that color code as necessary. So in the conditional formatting exists here in the Home tab. So I'm going to go back to Home tab on there, and it's going to exist right here, kind of in the middle under the styles. There's this button here, this menu here that says conditional formatting. So in order to start off working with conditional formatting, you have to choose the column that it works on. Generally, conditional formatting only works on a single column at a time. There are ways to like make it so that the conditional formatting can kind of do a whole row, but it's much more complicated and beyond the scope of the class that we're working on. So generally what happens is when you do conditional formatting, it will just be on like a single column at a time. So we're going to start off actually looking at conditional formatting with I'm looking at what my exercises are so that we all know kind of what's at. We're going to start looking at salary. And what we want to do is we want to kind of color code information in our salaries based on by the amount that's in the salary. So before I do this here, I'm actually going to go do a quick sort again. I just want to resort my data back to the way that it was before initially, which was by team name, A to Z, and then by name. Just kind of put it back into the original order when we first started off the class here, simply because it makes the conditional formatting. Go through, oh, you want me to go through the VLOOKUP one more time? Got it. There was a question about this here, so I'm going to go back and do that before I continue with the conditional formatting. Okay, so VLOOKUP. Let me go back. I'm going to start here in a new cell. I'm going to start off with the equal sign, because that's what starts a formula. And then I'm going to type in VLOOKUP, or I'm going to start typing it, and then it's going to give me the recommendation here. This is always the easiest way to kind of get to a formula. You start typing it, double click on this here, because then it'll also give you kind of this little tooltips that will tell you what information that it's looking for. So the first value, the first argument that the formula is looking for is the lookup value, which is whatever your search term is. So in this case, the best thing to do is choose a cell where you'll be typing in that search term. So here what I'm going to do is I'm going to then select G6 because that's where my search term went. And it could be any cell. And then what happens is, since that, I'm going to hit comma to go to my next argument. You can kind of see it. It moves from, it moves to bold. It bolds the second one there, tell me that's the one that it's currently working on. So you always get a sense of which of these steps you're working on as you're writing it out. The next thing in here is the table array. What is the table of data that your VLOOKUP is going to look for? And so the table array, remember that your leftmost column has to be the column that has the information that's in your search term. Because of the way my data is organized and I want to search by name, I can't pull the team information because it's to the left of my search term. Just the way the VLOOKUP works. If you want to use VLOOKUP with your table, make sure that you put whatever is your search on the farthest left or on the top if you're doing an HLOOKUP. So in this case, my table array is going to start here at B4. I'm going to go all the way down to the bottom to D442, and I'm going to click that so that it's shift select that, so it selects everything in between. And go up here on the top, and you can kind of see now it's entered in B4 to D442, which is the range of the data that I'm looking for. That's my table. That's my table array. I'm going to hit comma to go to my next argument here, which is the column index number, which is saying what column are we looking up based on the information that you have in your lookup value. And it's the number of the column starts with the first column that you have, which is should be your search column is column 1. And then moving right, you have column 2, column 3, column 4, 5, 6, so on. So in this case, we want to be looking at the salary. So we want to look at column 2. So I'm going to put in 2. And then the final thing is range lookup. Kind of rule of thumb, generally at this point, just put false until you're kind of really familiar and know the reason why you want to put true there. So just generally put false. Close your parentheses to show that you're at the end of your formula or the end of this VLOOKUP entry there and such, and then you hit enter. And so now what it's doing is it's searching whoever's there. So if I look at Clark Tony, he just happens to be right here. It'd be easy to compare. I can type in his name there, hit enter, and then it will search. It will search this list here, going from the top all the way down to the bottom to find this entry. It found it here. Then it went over to column 2 and pulled that information right from there and filled it in. So that's the VLOOKUP and the kind of the different steps for that there. If you do need assistance in the future, kind of this kind of thing, one of the great tools with Excel is if you go to your browser. This is what I do all the time when I'm trying to figure out how to do something in Excel. Is I'll go to Google and I'll type in Excel 2016 VLOOKUP. And you can actually kind of see there's people who've done YouTube tutorials on how to do it. Those are really great. You can kind of watch through the steps. But you'll notice that my first result right up here goes to this support.office.com. Support.office.com is the site created by Microsoft to provide help and support for Microsoft Office. And their Excel help is excellent. Not to put a pun on it there and such. They really excel at their Excel reference information on there. So I go here and it tells me what the formula does, and then it tells me like the information that you need to find it, and then examples on how to write it on there. So it's just a really great tool. So if you're using Excel, you don't just have to use this for VLOOKUP. If there's anything you need to do in Excel, going onto Google and doing the search and looking at support.office.com for what they talk about it, I've always been really happy about how well written they are and how clear they are at kind of explaining the steps. People sometimes give Microsoft a lot of grief for some things. Their support on Office on support.office.com is some of the best online support that I've ever encountered. Just kind of give a sense of what's going on out there. So yeah, this is, I mean, take it from excerpt. This is actually how I go and find my answers almost all the time, is going and doing a Google search and kind of digging through the results on there. If there aren't any other questions, we'll get back to the conditional formatting. So we had resorted our data back to the original sort, which was by team and then by author's name. And the only reason I did that there is that it's going to make my conditional formatting on the salary be a lot more dynamic than if it was still sorted by highest to lowest. Then it just ends up being like big blocks going down. So I'm going to come back to my home tab, and I'm going to click on, I'm going to click on C. I'm going to select my C column because this is the column I want to do my conditional formatting on. I'm going to come up here and I click the C on the top, and it selects all the way. In fact, it selects all the way down to the bottom of my data and then beyond. So it's everything in the C column. It's generally a good thing to do because if you put that in, then if you add rows, it will continue doing the conditional formatting in all the new rows down below your data. If I just did it in my data itself, if I added anything else, it may not do that conditional formatting. So generally it's just easier to just click that top column and select everything kind of going down. Now I'm going to come up here and I'm going to do conditional formatting. And you can kind of see that we have a variety of different conditional formattings that we can do. The top couple here say highlight cell rules. So you're setting up rules to highlight the cells in a specific way. And you can kind of see different rules. Is the value greater than something? Is it less than something? Is it between two numbers? Is it equal to something? So if you want to highlight something like equal, so like one of my common things that I do a lot lately is if I'm having a column that I'm doing like yes and no answers, like if I'm waiting to get responses from people and I have a spreadsheet keeping track and I have like a column that says, have I received a response? I'll do yes or no. I can mark anything that's marked as yes. It will automatically say color it whatever color I want to do. Then it makes it really easy to scan up and down and see which ones I've gotten responses from and which ones I haven't. So I would do like equals to yes. And so when I type in yes, it does that conditional formatting. Text that contains data current. So there's a bunch of different kind of rules that you can do there. There are top and bottom rules. You can do things like the top 10 items. So what are like the top 10 salaries? Find the top 10 salaries and then do this rule, do this formatting to them. Make them blue, make them red, make the color, the text yellow, or whatever you want to do conditional formatting. We'll take a look at that there. The cool thing about this is that it's dynamic, which means that it's constantly always adjusting and looking at that condition. So if I go in and do my top 10 salaries, I want to color them, say, bright blue to make them kind of pop out. And then I go in and enter in a salary that ends up being in that top 10. It will drop down the number 10 in. So the bottom salary on that there will lose that conditional formatting, and the new one I put in will get adjusted. The top 10%, so the top 10% or the bottom 10 or bottom percent, or things that are above average or below average, these here will automatically do the math. They'll look at all the values in the column, figure out what the average is, and then color based on, okay, everything that's above the average will be green, everything that's below the average will be red. You add in more data, it will automatically adjust that average and color things appropriately. So the conditional formatting is really cool because it will automatically kind of condition and format your data. Even as you enter in new data, it will constantly adjust and change it. We're going to look at a couple simple things in the course of this class here. So we're just going to look at some of the highlight cell rules. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do greater than. We're going to look at all the salaries that are greater than $500,000. We're going to color them. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to type in 500,000. Now remember before when I was showing you the find and replace, and when we did a search for the salaries, I had to omit the comma. I didn't want to include the comma to make it work. In conditional formatting, you have to include the comma. So you see if I go here and I just put in 500,000, oh, it does work actually. I must have updated that there. In Office 2010, Excel 2010, it didn't do that there. I had to have the comma in there to make it work. So that must have been something that they fixed in later versions. Okay, so I can actually forget about this tip now, but sometimes here the comma will work. So if I put in 500, comma, 1,000, you can kind of see over here, it's already showing those ones there that are selected. And then over here, so I'm going to, what value am I looking for? I'm looking for format cells that are greater than, in this case, 500,000. And I'm going to color them green fill with dark green text. There's some pre-filled kind of options here. So we're going to do green fill with dark green text. And I'm going to hit OK. And now you can see if I scroll down, everything that's above 500,000 is colored in green with green text. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight that same column there. I'm going to do conditional formatting again. I'm going to choose highlight cell rules. I'm going to do less than. So everything less than 400,000 is going to be red with dark red text. So now I'm starting to see my dynamic difference. Everything that's above 500,000 is going to be green. Everything that's below 400,000 is going to be red. Let me see. I'm looking for a specific example. Okay, so here is a specific example that I want to show you about how this is kind of working. You'll notice that my rule said everything greater than 500,000 is going to be colored green. That rule is not inclusive, which means that it has to be 500,001 or higher. 500,000 does not work. The same thing with the, if I have anything that's 400,000. Yes, here we go. Same thing with the less than. Once again, it has to be 399,999 or below. 400,000 is not included in the less than rule. So you see, I still have a whole bunch here that are still colored in white. So let's do another final conditional formatting to kind of get that middle area there. So I'm going to go highlight cell rules, and then I'm going to go down to this third one that says between. I'm going to click on between, and now I'm going to tell. So for the greater than and the less than rules, they're not inclusive, which means they will not include the value that I enter in here. The between is inclusive, so I actually can go in and put 400,000, and I can go in and put 500,000, and it will include those values. And we're going to color those into the yellow fill. There we go. And so you can see now the 500,000 is included in that there. And if I go down and find that 400,000 again, there it is. That one's included. So for the less than and the greater than rules, they're not inclusive. They will not include the value that you search for. For the between, they will include the values. So go off, take about 3 minutes, and do the conditional formatting on column C. This is exercise 4 on your handout here. Let me show this up here. So we're looking at this here, and we're doing these kind of first 3 steps here on exercise 4. Highlight all the salaries that are above 500,000 green, all the ones below are 400,000 red, and then everything that's between, we're going to do them yellow. And then we'll continue on and look at kind of different ways that we can use this conditional formatting. So I'll give you about 3 minutes to work on this. If you have questions, please ask them in the chat. Okay, minute. You're looking at kind of what else we can do with conditional. Okay, so now that we have used conditional formatting on our salaries here, we can kind of start doing some things with our data based on that conditional formatting. So for example, I am going to go over and we are going to do a sort. So we can do things like we can sort. So I am going to sort the players by their salary color. So we're going to actually Okay, so we're going to sort by salary. And before, remember when we looked at the sort, we had cell values chosen there, which is what the value of the cell, whatever we entered inside the cell. We can also go down and choose cell color or font color. So if I choose cell color here, I can then say, okay, so everything that's green is going to be on top. I'm going to hit OK. And now you can see now it is now sorted so that everything above is green. And then we get down and we have all the others down here. So it's an easy way to kind of pull in, like, okay, everything that I've sorted green. So, and that sorting can change based on how this coloration happens. So if I go down and I end up, actually, if this, let's see if this actually will do this. If I make this here, we'll add another couple of to, I'll add 1 0. You can see it's green. I'd have to actually run the sort again to kind of make it happen. If I do that, it will then move him up to that area there. So the sort doesn't happen dynamically, but you can sort, you can use the color in the conditional formatting to pull out specific colors. I'm going to do what I did there. You can also do filtering based on colors. So I can come up here and I can pull up my filter, which I still have open. And right up here, there's a filter by color. So I can actually look at whatever specific, either cell color, which is that background color, or font color, which is the color of the text. So if I wanted to just look at all of my red, all the ones that I have below 500,000, I can then just filter out all the other ones there. And you can see now everything is just the red with the red text. So color not only allows you as a user of Excel to have kind of a more visual impact of your data and have your data change based on the conditional formatting, but you can also use it with some of the tools that we've already looked at in this class. So in this case, when we did the sorting of the salaries, or the conditional formatting of the salaries with the amount of the salaries, we chose the preset colorations: the green with the green text, the red with the red text, the yellow with the yellow text. You can also customize those colorings, and let's do that. Let's take a look here. If we go to our positions, so I'm going to highlight my position column D, go back to my home row. I'm going to come down to conditional formatting. We're going to look at highlight cell rules, and we're going to look at equal to. So in this case, I want to format cells that are equal to. There's that little sentence again. Excel is very good at kind of putting these things that, taking these concepts like conditional formatting and kind of putting it into, adding things to the interface that makes you think in terms that are a little easier to understand. So like a sentence, format cells that are equal to. In this case, we're going to do second baseman. And I'm going to come over here and with, right now it's by default the light red fill with dark red text, but I'm going to come down, instead of choosing that, I'm going to come down to where it says custom format. And when I do that, it will open up the format cell box. This is actually the same format, similar to the same format cell box that if I click this like font up here and click that, I would get this kind of same information there. So if I wanted to, I can look at my border. Actually, I can, the border over here. I can choose the color of the border. I can choose my font. What color is the font going to be? In this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to color it I'm going to do mine as dark blue. And then my fill is the background color. And in this case, I'm going to do a light blue. So I'm going to do that same kind of like darker color on top of a lighter version of the same color. I'm going to hit OK and OK again. And now you can see all of my second basemen are now highlighted with that dark blue. If I wanted to, I could have done something as simple as make them all bold. Anything that's a second baseman, they'll be made bold. Or I could put a border around them. I mean, there's a variety, anything that you can do to format a cell, to whether it's changing the background color or the font color or changing the font itself. Actually, I don't know if you can change the font in the conditional formatting. Good question. Format, font. Yeah, it doesn't allow me to select it, so I can't change the font, but I can make things bold. I can change the color. I can change an underline on them. I can add borders to them. I can fill them with different colors. But I can't change the font itself. But so a lot of different kind of formatting changes. Any of those there and such, I can then customize that for what I want to do. So as I've mentioned, working with conditional formatting is dynamic. It will constantly be kind of editing and changing things as you work with your data. So you could enter in a bunch of your data, set up your conditional formatting, and then continue doing your information entry, and it will automatically adjust the conditional formatting based on what you entered. So for example, I'm going to go in and I'm going to create a new row here because I'm going to enter in a new player just to kind of show you how this works. I'm going to create a new row here, and you can see as soon as I create that new row, it colors this cell here red. And the reason for that there is that right now this cell, there's nothing in it, so it's almost the equivalent of being a 0, which is less than 400,000, which meets the rule of being colored red with red text. We're going to call the team that he's working on the Stanford Geese. His name is John Smith. And starting off, he earned 375,000. And he was a second baseman. That was the reason why I chose second baseman as my filter there. So if I fill in second baseman and hit enter, you can see that as I've put in 375, because 375,000 is below my 400,000 threshold that I chose for my red coloring, it gets colored red. Because second baseman over here matches the conditional formatting that I have in this column, that all second basemen get colored blue, gets colored. Suppose if he was a shortstop, that you can see the conditional formatting doesn't happen. Go back in and make him a second baseman, and it colors it again. So the conditional formatting changes. It's conditional based on the information that's in there. Now, suppose John Smith had a very good year, and they decided, okay, dude, you really hit it spot on. We're going to give you one hell of a raise. Where they're going to actually give him, they're going to actually add like another 0 onto it. They're going to go from 375,000 to 3.75 million. They're going to make him one of the wealthiest players out there. So I'm going to hit another 0 and add that there and hit enter. And you notice that now it went from that red salary to a green salary because it went above 500,000. So the conditional formatting will change the information based on what you enter into it. It's dynamic. It will constantly updating and changing. So a good example, I was going to actually show like the top 10 and how that changes, but we're not going to really spend time. So you can kind of go in and kind of play around with a variety of different rules that you have with the conditional formatting. As I mentioned, one of my common things that I like to do is I like to have like a yes or no column and do things like yes is green, no is red, and then it makes it a really easy visual as I'm going through, and it's easy to go in and change yes, no, and have a visual cue of like what needs to be responded to or what doesn't need to be responded to. So are there any questions about conditional formatting before we move on to the last thing we're going to be covering in this class? I'll give you a couple of minutes because I know this is a little bit behind where I'm at right now. Or any questions on anything that we've covered, sorting, filtering, or keyboard shortcuts. What else have we done? Vlookup, HLookup. Let me know if you have any questions. All right, like we're good. If there are questions, please send them to the chat. I will get back to them when I see it. So the final thing that we're going to look at here in Excel today is we're going to look at templates. So in Excel, you can do a lot of really complicated, really cool, fancy things. And if you're taking this course, along with me, actually, this is kind of about the extent and limits of kind of a lot of the stuff that I do in Excel is what I'm showing you here. But there's a lot of really cool, fancy things that you can do in Excel. The great thing is that you don't need to know exactly how to do it yourself in order to kind of be able to use those tools. A lot of people have already done the hard work in Excel, kind of doing some really neat, fancy things with formatting and design and building unique spreadsheets. Excel gets used across the entire world by a wide range of people with a lot of different purposes, and people have built templates that other people are able to use. Templates are also valuable for you to use because if there's something that you do like continuously in Excel, like suppose you have to file a weekly report or like a monthly report, the thing that most people will do with a template or with a report or something is that they'll fill it out for the months. Like if we fill it out for March, You fill out your monthly report, and then May comes around, we have to fill out the one for April. They'll go open up March, and they'll go in and they'll start making changes to the March one to match the data that they have for April. The problem with this is that almost inevitably, anybody who does this here will automatically hit Control S or go to save, and they'll accidentally save over their March one, losing all those kind of numbers. Templates allow you to take something that you do on a continuous basis and kind of build the framework for it, that whenever you open it up, it's a new spreadsheet. It behaves like a new spreadsheet does, which means that when you save it for the first time, you get a save as. You can choose where you save it. It won't save over another file, but it already has a lot of those structure things that you need built into it. Let me show you actually how this all works. Actually, it's sometimes a little hard to explain without kind of demonstrating. So what we're going to do is we're going to go up to our File menu in Excel, and we're going to come down to New. And so you should be able to start seeing a lot of these kind of different templates that are available here. So templates are, and you can see Excel comes with a bunch of built-in templates, things like calendars and monthly budgets, invoices. And if you don't find it in here in Excel, you can go out to Google and do a search for Excel template for whatever purposes you're looking. Are you looking for an inventory? Are you looking for an inventory list? Are you looking for an invoice? Are you looking for a monthly budget? What kind of thing are you looking for? You look out there, Excel, whatever you're looking for, template, and there'll be things out there. Some people will charge for them, but there are also going to be free things out there as well too. In our case, we're going to take a quick look here at this personal monthly budget. And so I'm going to double click on this here and so it download, and now it's opened it up here. This is a little different than how it worked in Office 2010. So if you're working in 2010, you're going to be like right into the budget. Here, they kind of give a little bit of information about what it is and kind of how to work with it there. You can see I have these couple different tabs. So I'm going to click over here on the Personal Monthly Budget tab down at the bottom, and we're going to look at the Personal Monthly Budget here. Box there. Okay, so this is a little fancier than what I'm used to. They've really changed this than they did in 2010. There we go. So you can kind of see that this here has built a lot of the hard work that you would need to build a personally monthly budget. You're able to track what your income is, and it will tell you kind of where that's coming in, the projected or the actual. Over here, you're able to see the balances. So you can actually see that by the default that they have filled in here and such, the person actually doesn't have enough income to match what their the projected balance is not going to match what the actual balance is. They need to kind of make that up a bit. You can kind of see it's filled in some of the common categories, so things like housing, mortgage, rent. This is something that you could do yourself. You can go into Excel and you can kind of do it all here and design it and build it the way that you want, but they have already done the work here. You can do, actually, the one that I used to use with this here in 2010 actually already used things like conditional formatting, but I could do say something like here, like this difference. We can conditional format, and we could say anything that's less than 0, make it red, so that you can kind of easily see what the negatives are in that case. And so, for example, if I go in and the projected or the actual cost for this year was actually 35, you can kind of see it automatically does the math over there and it adjusts up there. So the template is already doing a lot of that calculations, has the formulas built in and doing the work, which again, you could do, but somebody's already done the work to start. Once you have the template open, you can then modify it for whatever you want to do. So for example, if you have, I'm going to see if this works. This works in Office 2010, which is where I've mostly taught this class. Suppose we have a second income 2, that is going to be 3,500. You can kind of see, yeah, so there we go. So I was able to insert a row. I was able to insert a column. It automatically included the math there, which included it over here. Actually, and this is going to be income 2, and it was actually 6,000. We'll give this family, this monthly budget here, a bit of a windfall this month. So they're actually up above on top there. But you can go in and you can then fill in the number. The projected costs of movies for the month of April is actually sadly 0 because nobody's going out. So the actual cost. Let's do some other. Since we're spending more time, let's do ebooks because that's what people are having to buy, and they're going to spend $30. They're projected to spend $30, but they got through their books a little bit faster, so they spent $50. And you can kind of see that the math is all working, goes around. So you can edit and work on there. If I wanted to, I can easily change what these categories are to match what my circumstances are, and use this template to match what my lifestyle is. And so you can see, as I showed you before, there's a wide variety of templates available. Sales invoice tracker, simple invoice, that you're then able to, if I open up the simple invoice and we go take a look at this here, you're able to kind of fill in information like the company name and phone number. You can fill in the information that you need, and then this will then be designed so that it can actually like print out an invoice or something that you can then email to somebody on there. And instead of having to build this yourself, they've already done the work here, and they've actually designed this here so that it will actually print nicely, because printing in Excel can sometimes be a pain. But this is designed so it will print nicely on there. And you can actually use that template for, like, I mean, a good example is using some of the other skills that we've looked at in this class. Using the Vlookup and the Hlookup, I could, it gets a little bit more complicated, but you can actually have, like, I could put in an item number here and have it go check another spreadsheet that I've made that has all the item numbers and has descriptions and unit prices there. And so I can fill in, say, like, this is going to be A03. It'll go look up A03 and automatically fill in my description and unit price. So you can use some of those skills kind of in combination together. Now, as I mentioned when I first started talking about templates, is that they're also useful for your own things that you're doing. That suppose your company or your business or whatever personal thing that you're doing, you need to do something on a repetitive basis. You can create your own templates. And the way to do that there is that you design your template. So suppose we've designed this here and we want to be able to use this as our template going forward. Once I've created it, I'm going to come up here to the File menu. I'm going to go down to Save As. And in the Save As, there's going to be, I can put in my file name here. This is going to go into my Documents folder here. There's this, but over here where it says Excel Workbook, and it has this XLSX extension on there. I'm going to click that there. I'm going to come down, and there is an option here that says Excel Template, XLTX. And what that does is that actually creates a template file. I'm going to do this here, and actually let's call this Class Invoice. Actually, let me save this somewhere else. It's easy to find to show you. Excel folder. Save it there. So what that did, let me actually show you here. Right place. Okay, so this is my Excel folder here. And you can see here's that file that I just created. And actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to extra large icon so we can take a look at how it looks. So here's that Class Invoice XLTX. You can kind of see the extension right there. You can kind of see that the icon looks a little different than with the Excel spreadsheet. This is an Excel spreadsheet here. You can kind of see it's a very kind of plain looking next to like the Word documents here. It looks similar to that there. This one here has this little green bar on the top, and what it does is it makes the icon look a little bit like a pad, and that's a good metaphor for how templates work. I mean, if you think about something like, say, like a doctor's prescription pad, the doctor's prescription pad is going to have like things on, like lines on it for the name of the drug, the prescription quantity, the doctor's signature, the doctor's information on there. But they have a pad that has some of that stuff already filled in, and they just need to fill in the lines. That's what happens with a template, is that you fill in kind of the format. You have things filled in, the company name, your doctor's office name, and then you just have lines that you fill in on that unique circumstances that you need, and it ends up being a pad. So when I double click and open this, I'm actually going to close this back here, and we're going to open that up. I'm going to double click this here. It will actually open it up, and you can see up here, it saves it as Class Invoice 1 up on my title bar up on the top there. It's that same it's the same file name. It's a basic file name, as if I opened up like an Excel spreadsheet. It would say like new worksheet or new workbook on there. And if I go to File, Save, it takes me to Save As instead of Save. So it allows me to save it as a new file. So there's never any risk of me saving it over an old file unless I specifically do that there. So templates allow you to take like a task or that you do in Excel continuously on a repetitive basis, and you can kind of build the framework for it so that you don't always have to like use an old file as a model or to constantly be like rebuilding the same thing like every month. You can just open up the template and dive in and work on it and save it as a new document without having to. So you do all of the work designing and building it once, and then you kind of reap the benefits of that going forward. So there are like some continual kind of, there's a lot of different things you can do with templates. I do recommend kind of getting in and playing with it. That's kind of my motto with a lot of working with technology and working with Microsoft Office is just get in there, experiment, and play around on your own. You can't break Excel. It's hard to break Excel. It's hard to break, you can't break your computer doing these kind of things. Get in there. Don't be afraid to try things out. If you do something that seems to change a lot, use Control Z or the undo to undo it. Or if anything, close the file and open it up new and start again from the beginning if you need to. The best way to learn is just by doing and kind of seeing what different things do. Make mistakes and see how to fix them or what the mistakes do in that case. It really is the best way to learn. Don't be afraid of those kind of things. The couple final things I want to cover in this class. If there are any questions, this is a good time to put them into chat and I'll cover them before I end the stream. But some of the last things I want to take a look at is on your handout that's available on the online tech-classes site that I shared at the beginning. I'll share that link again. There's a bunch of pages with keyboard shortcuts. Again, take a quick look through those there, find things you want to do. But at the very bottom is a section called Further Study and Practice, which links out, provides information about lynda.com, which is a subscription service that the library provides to all of our library members. When you go to lynda.com, you'll want to access this address here, the lynda.com/portal/patron, all through there, or go through a link from the Ferguson Library's website at fergusonlibrary.org. We have it in a couple different places on the website. It's on our A to Z listing as well as in our computer classes and learning page. Where's that? Let me. It's under careers and education. That's where it's at. So under careers and education, we have a link to it here as well too. So if I click on this and go to computer skills, there is a link to lynda.com there. You'll want to go to that link to view it. It'll just ask to sign in with your library card number and your PIN. If you just go to lynda.com, they're going to want to charge you for a subscription. So you don't want to do that there. You'll sign in here with your library card number and your PIN. If you need help with this here, contact us through our contact us form on the website. But lynda.com offers access to tons of online learning lessons on a huge variety of software and different kind of work skills. So it's not just things. So if we come here to business, you can see there's Excel, there's Word, there's PowerPoint, but there's a lot of other things going on. For example, things like marketing. If you want to learn kind of different marketing skills or educational technology, there's digital photography and using photography software or specific topics of photography. It's a really great learning tool that we provide access to. It's all available for you for free. So please go and kind of continue your learning with that there. You'll notice that at the bottom, I do have several kind of lessons here to kind of cover, kind of either refresh or kind of build upon what we've worked on here in the class. So things like working with your data, conditional formatting, managing and analyzing data in Excel. If you have an older version, Excel 2013, 2010, they still have lessons on lynda.com. You can actually pinpoint specifically for the version of Excel that you have. So I really encourage you to kind of go out and continue your learning using lynda.com. Coming up here at the class, up the right here, go here. Coming up with our learning tomorrow, I am going to be doing an intermediate PowerPoint class, which will be also from 2 to 4. So that'll be intermediate PowerPoint. That'll also be available here on the YouTube channel. Next week, on Tuesday, I'm going to be doing an advanced Microsoft Word class where we're going to be looking at doing things like table of contents, working with sections and columns, things to do when you're working with long documents in Microsoft Word, and then finally looking at kind of working collaboratively in Word. How do you work with other people in Microsoft Word? And then on Thursday, I'm going to be doing our Microsoft Office integrated class, which is looking at how to use Word, PowerPoint, and Excel all together. And then finally, on April 21st, I'm going to be doing an HTML and CSS class. So if you want to learn how to build a website from scratch, I'll be kind of covering that there. Now, final thing for this class here, let me make sure I'm going. Is if you've enjoyed this class and you want to kind of show that you enjoyed the class, or you want us to be able to kind of cover and teach other things, please go complete the survey here at projectoutcome.org/responses/50649. This link is also available on the online technology class resources here. If you go to Microsoft Excel, Intermediate Microsoft Excel, there's a survey link right there. And that will just kind of give us feedback about how we did here and also give you an opportunity to kind of say what else you're looking for during the class. So if you have any other questions, please ask them here. I'll stay on for the next couple of minutes to see if anybody has any questions. Thank you for attending, and I hope I see you tomorrow again for Microsoft Intermediate Microsoft PowerPoint. We'll be covering things like transitions, animations, and and what happens when you're doing a presentation in PowerPoint. So thank you very much. Bye. Thank you for watching. Okay, so there aren't be any questions coming up. If you are any questions, you can always reach out to us at our virtual online chat where you can reach out to a librarian. It's open from 10 to 5 Monday through Friday, or you can use the contact us link on the website, and they'll get to one of our librarians to be able to answer questions. So thanks again for joining us. I hope to see you tomorrow, and have a very good afternoon.